ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. Welcome everybody. This is our Q&A session. We do it every night. Always exciting, always spontaneous, always fresh. Why? Because we never know what you're going to ask. That comes from you. And so I will turn this over to all of you right now and ask one of you wonderful people to please start the evening by bringing forward a relevant question. Who would like to begin? Any one of you. Anyone at all. I'm going to have to wait patiently. Ken has something. Ken, something stirring up in Ken? Yes? No? Yes? Okay.
So a question, something you said last week, you mentioned how Krishna as the All Supreme, which is written, or Sri Chaitanya apparently, I say apparently, thought that Krishna is the Supreme God. It's something you said last week about how Krishna then gave the work to do to all of the, I don't mean to speak incorrectly, but say today I was with a young Indian man learning some music, and he spoke of how that Shiva is the boss of, not the boss of all the gods, like he's the head. And here in Rishikesh, in this turn of the Ganga, it has seemed to be the abode of Shiva, or many would feel that. So, can you speak about Krishna's interaction with or connection with all the pantheon of Hindu gods? It's a kind of...
Thank you. And as we've been speaking several times throughout these evenings, we've often said that if you take, well, let me share this way, and I've shared about this too, so maybe some of this will sound familiar, but there's some differences, a different approach between the Eastern mind and the Western mind. And we said that may have grown out of the way that their spiritual texts are written. Because in the Western world, where their cultures have grown out of the Abrahamic texts, like the Bible and the Quran, it's kind of a very cut and dried approach. This person is God, nobody else. Sometimes they don't really even identify, they just say there is this God. You can't draw a picture of him, you can't talk about him. But there's God, and you need to get on God's side. You need to have faith and believe in that God, and your salvation depends on that. There's a line drawn in the sand. Either you believe or you don't. You have one lifetime to get yourself on that right side of the line, otherwise you're doomed. Okay, so that's like, there's not a lot of wiggle room there. There's not a lot of space, let's say. Now, the Eastern texts are written in a very different way. The Eastern text, the idea is, wherever you're at, this text is going to come and meet you where you're at, and it's going to encourage you, right? That God isn't saying, I'm a jealous God and get on the right side of the line or you're finished. God's saying, you have many, many lifetimes, and I'm waiting for you to come back. And it may take a long time, it may take a short time. If you hear in the Abrahamic text, it's like, if you worship anyone other than God, you've done the worst horrible thing you can do. In the East, it's like Krishna saying, you can worship the different devas, the different gods, the different goddesses. He says that when someone worships the gods or the goddesses for the things of this world, Krishna says they're doing it avidipurvakam. Avidipurvakam. They don't really understand how it all works. They think that God or goddess is the one that's providing it. Really, those gods and goddesses provide what I provide to them, right? Because there's nothing, aham sarvasya prabhava, everything emanates from me. The gods themselves emanate from him. But he doesn't say, so therefore they're doomed. He actually says it's a good thing. It's a good thing that they're showing some gratitude to this secondary source that's providing something for them. They're evolving. They're moving forward, recognizing that they're not the highest power in the world, showing gratitude for all the gifts that they're receiving in life. This person is evolving. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm within the heart of every living being, and I will make their faith strong, encourage them in this way. Okay? So because the texts are written in that way, always encouraging you wherever you're at, you can pick up these different books and it sounds like what they're talking about is the highest thing. And that can become confusing. And because it's such a vast body of work, there's so many devas, so many avatars spoken of, it can get confusing. So it takes for the sages to comb through them very carefully and lay it all out for us. Now, there's different categories. There's matter and there's spirit, right? Matter has no consciousness. Its forms are always shifting. It's here today and it's gone tomorrow. Whereas spirit is eternal, right? And it doesn't change. It's steady. Within the category of spirit, there's different categories of beings. First, there's the supreme being, which is Krishna. And sometimes Krishna expands himself. He takes on another form. It's still him, but him in another form. Those are the avatars. Okay? Krishna himself manifesting in a different form. Sometimes he empowers someone that's not him, someone just like you or me. He gives them a role, and he gives them the power to carry out the role. And that's the majority of the devas. What is the role for Lord Brahma? Let's talk about how these ancient texts lay out the universe and the history of the universe. And as I share this, one thing that we have to keep in mind is, from this perspective, the history of the universe is just a tiny thing, because there's unlimited universes. And they're all going through eternal cycles of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So when I say this is the history of the universe, it may sound like I'm talking about the biggest possible subject, but if you zoom out, it's actually a very tiny subject, right? But how does the history play out? Is that the first being in this bubble of the universe is Vishnu. There's water in the universe. Vishnu lies down on the water. He's lying down in a mystic slumber, right? From his navel grows a lotus flower. I'm sorry if this sounds far out and mythological, but the fact is that any creation story is going to be incredibly far out. Even if you say there was a bit of energy that's like infinitely small and unlimitedly dense, and it explodes and then everything comes from it, that's a pretty far out thing too. But what's being presented in the Vedic literature is that there's a person behind everything, and that person is creative and far out. And this is how he manifests things. So Vishnu is Krishna. It's Krishna in another form, lying down on that water. A lotus grows from his navel. On the lotus is Brahma, the first being aside from Vishnu. Brahma looks around. He's kind of you have to understand, there's nothing been created in the universe yet. So what do you think it would look like there? Dark, right? There's no sun, hasn't been created yet, So he's kind of looking around and trying to figure out, get his bearings straight. He goes down the stem of the lotus to try to find out, and this is kind of he's asking the first question that a being in the universe is meant to ask. Where do I come from? What is my origin? Right? Natural, is it not? If we're going through life and not asking that, then what are we doing? So he's trying to find out, where do I come from? He goes down the lotus, he can't find it. He comes back up, a bit confused and frustrated, and then he hears two syllables, tapa, tapa, tapa. Perform tapas. Sit and meditate. Brahma meditates for a long time, and in his meditation, he connects with Vishnu. He hears Vishnu, and he receives instructions on what is his dharma, what is his duty. right? He begins the act of creation, right? From his mind, planets, solar systems, species can all be created. And much of this is laid out in texts like the Bhagavatam and other Puranas. Now, but who is Brahma? You may have been Brahma. I may have been Brahma at some point in one of our lives. Brahma is a post. It's not exactly a person, but it's a person playing a particular role. Just like there's a president, you know, someone takes that role, then they leave that role, someone else takes that role. That's what Brahma is. It's a post, the post of the creator, right? Beneath him come all the rest of the devas. He's kind of the level-headed, super intelligent adult in the room when it comes to all the devas. When we hear the stories of the rest of the devas, sometimes they're doing amazingly wonderful things, and sometimes they're messing up. Sometimes they're powerfully defending the universe, and sometimes they're losing, and they're desperate and confused and in anxiety. When they find themselves in anxiety, they tend to go to Brahma, help us out. And Brahma's kind of like above them, you know. So Brahma and Indra and Chandra and Surya, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are beings like you or I, playing very important roles, delivered to them because of their exceptional karma, their exceptional behavior, their exceptional works that they've done, maybe for many, many lifetimes. Now, Shiva is something still different, another category of his own. Shiva practically is Krishna, or practically is Vishnu. There's a saying about Krishna. I really should learn the Sanskrit. Something na padam. Krishna never sets one foot out of Vrindavan. What is Vrindavan? You could go get in a taxi and drive 6 hours and visit a town called Vrindavan, which is the place of Krishna's leelas, his pastimes. If we see it, this is how the sages, this is what they tell us. If we see it with these material eyes, it'll look kind of like any other village with a lot of Krishna temples in it. But if you can see beyond that, then you could realize that this is not an ordinary place. And the idea is this, that Krishna is always existing outside and beyond this universe in his own realm. That realm is divine. That realm is the realm of divine love, right? You don't enter it into until you are capable of moving in harmony with divine love. He is not interested in stepping out of that realm. He's not interested in doing the creation of the material universe. So he empowers Brahma to do it, right? He's not interested in even being the one that creates Brahma. He expands himself and sends himself, to do it in the form of Lord Vishnu. And so what to speak of the judging? Who's the judge in the universe? Someone that's judging our behavior and then meting out rewards or punishments, particularly punishments. Does anyone know? Which deva? Anybody know? Yamaraj. You've heard of Yamaraj? Yamaraj, he's that's his job. You want, if you may have to do some time. Yamaraj is the one that's going to send his dutas, his servants, his messengers to pull you down into your cosmic punishment, Krishna's definitely not interested in that kind of stuff. He's interested in adventures of love. And those adventures of love take place in this perfect realm for it. He doesn't feel like stepping out of that realm. It's kind of like most of us don't like to go to prison very much, We like to stay where we're free, Sometimes someone might go into prison to help the prisoners, and Krishna expands to do that. And it sends certain people to do it. And one person that he sends is Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is just like Lord Vishnu when he touches the material energy. Krishna never touches the material energy, but in a sense, Lord Shiva is Krishna touching the material energy. And by the touch, there's a transformation. So they say it's kind of like this. If I say, what is yogurt? Essentially, yogurt is milk, right? What are the ingredients in yogurt? It's milk. It's 100% milk except a touch of a bacteria. And when that when the milk touches that bacteria, it becomes yogurt, right? Shiva is Krishna, but it's Shiva just when he touches the material energy. And when he touches it, he becomes Shiva. And what a character, right? In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's one saying, Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. Shambhu refers to Shiva. Vaishnavanam yata. He is the greatest of the Vaishnavas. He sits in meditation on Vishnu or on Krishna. Shiva is glorified like crazy in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the book that's establishing the supremacy of Krishna. Shiva is called Mahadeva, okay? Because he's, again, most of the devas are jivas. They're people like you and me. Shiva is practically Krishna, but just with having touched the material energy. He's in a whole nother category. Therefore, he's called Mahadeva. He's the great deva. He's the deva when Krishna kind of becomes a deva. Like that. And the Srimad Bhagavatam sings his glories. So he's very merciful. He takes on a lot of what would be troublesome work for others. Right? He cares for those that no one else cares for, really. He's incredibly special. There's one of the most fascinating leelas, one of the most fascinating stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam is the conflict between a character named Daksha and Shiva. Would you like to hear about that conflict? Every conflict can be interesting sometimes, but there's a lot to learn through this conflict. The conflict between Shiva, or let's say between Daksha and Shiva, is pretty much the conflict between religion and spirituality. Daksha representing religion and Shiva representing spirituality. Daksha is one of the progenitors. He's one of the first beings in the universe. And his responsibility is to create progeny that fills the universe. He is like very orthodox. He knows what he's meant to do. His daughter is named Sati. Sati marries Shiva. Now, we can imagine this very orthodox character, Daksha, the way he dresses, the way he speaks, the way he carries himself. Very orthodox. Then you look at Lord Shiva, entirely unorthodox, right? His body is covered in ashes. He's got snakes all over him, right? He's got a garland of human skulls hanging around his neck. This is generally seen as tamasic, right? A very orthodox religious person does not dress this way and might not be so interested in associating with someone like that's into apparently darker stuff. And his daughter marries Lord Shiva. He's not very happy about that. And one day he walks into a public assembly. And as he walks in, he's shown respect by everyone stands up, shows him respect. He's used to that kind of behavior. One person doesn't stand up. Who is that? Shiva. He becomes very upset about this, and he begins to speak all kinds of harsh words about Lord Shiva, criticizing him. Now, Lord Shiva, it's not that he didn't get up just because he disrespected him. He didn't get up because he was deeply absorbed in trance, right? Deeply absorbed in trance on Lord Vishnu, right? That's where he's at. Who's Daksha's master ultimately? It's Vishnu. Shiva is just meditating on Vishnu on a much deeper level than he does. He really should have been saying, look at this. He's in such deep trance and meditation on Vishnu, but he didn't. He couldn't see it. He saw too much on the external level. Look how he's dressed. I don't like the way that he's behaving. He's not showing me respect. And he speaks all these horrible words. And Lord Shiva's associates, who are a colorful cast of characters, they don't appreciate it. And they can cause some trouble. And so what happens is, sometime after this, Daksha has a big social event at his home. Sati can see the different gods and goddesses traveling on their way to this, like traveling through the sky. They're all dressed up, just like people dress up for a special event. And she's saying, "Oh, I want to go." She turns to her husband, Shiva, "Let's go. Let us go to that." And Shiva says, "I don't think that's a good idea. I think that if I go there with you, even if you go alone, your father's going to say some very harsh things about me. I don't think that'll be good for anyone involved." But she was very insistent, and so she went. When she went there, her father wouldn't even look at her. And then he began to speak harsh words against Lord Shiva. And her love for Lord Shiva is so deep that she began to speak about her father. And she began speaking truth to power. It's a real speaking truth to power scene. She begins to explain how, even though he's got this big religious position, his spirituality is shallow, to not be able to understand the greatness of Lord Shiva. She goes into great detail. She speaks really strong and really with great authority. And then right in the middle of this big public festival, she sits down. She says, "I can no longer stand being in a body that is associated with you." And so right there on the spot, she goes into yogic trance and does this yogic accomplishment that nowadays they call human self-combustion, I think they call it, right? Spontaneous human combustion, where someone, by moving the energies in their own body, can ignite their own body into flames, and phew, she's gone. And then the whole place breaks out into chaos. All of Lord Shiva's followers just go nuts. They're tearing the whole place up. And they've got Daksha, and they got his head on like a chopping block. And they're cutting his head off and hacking away at it. The whole place, it just blows up into a big ball of confusion, a big mess. Now the Devas are saying, "What now? Look, Daksha's been killed here." There's a whole kind of cosmic instability. What do? We go to Lord Brahma. He's the adult in the room. He's the one that doesn't get all caught up in things like this. And they go and approach him, and they ask for his advice. And what does he say? "You should never speak harsh words about anyone, but what to speak about Lord Shiva? You don't judge this person by their external dress. There's no one like Lord Shiva. He's incredibly pure and exalted. What you're mistaking as disrespect is someone in the deepest trance. We should all aspire to be more like him. There's only one way around this. There's only one way out of this. You all need to go back and apologize to him." Now, this is a really important lesson in life. We may feel sometimes that we're doing some spiritual practice, but there's some block. We're not advancing. We're trying, and we're not getting anywhere. It could be because in some way we've offended someone very dear to Krishna. And they say that there's only one way out of that. You can't even just go to God and say, "Maybe I did something wrong. Could we overlook that?" But no, you have to go to that person, and you have to seek their forgiveness. So Brahma instructs them all, you go to Shiva and you seek his forgiveness. And Shiva grants that forgiveness to them all. And Daksha's head is replaced. It's replaced with the head of a goat. Now, this is unusual and a bit uncomfortable and maybe embarrassing. And one of my favorite lines, I don't know if you'll all share this in the same way that I do, but I feel that there's a joke in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because what happens is Lord Shiva is there, and all the different and Vishnu comes, and all the different devas begin to glorify Lord Vishnu, one after another. And eventually, the wife of Daksha speaks. And we can imagine that she's probably standing right next to her husband, who now has the head of a goat. And she says a line, I hope I can remember it. But she says, essentially what she says is that, "Dear Lord Vishnu, thank you for everything. You bring beauty to this world. Without you, this world is like a body without a head." She says something like that, and it's kind of like, you know, like, it's the fact that she said that, I think, indicates that she was, in a way, indirectly, maybe poking a little fun or drawing a little attention to her husband's fate, or how he misbehaved. So Shiva is someone that the Vaishnavas have the deepest love for. In Vrindavan, it's said that Shiva once wanted to witness the Rasa Lila, the dance between Krishna and all the gopis. But you can't enter that realm without the right mood, and no other male could enter that. So he was given the option that he could take on a female form, and he could become the guard of the Rasa Lila, the guard of Vrindavan. And so he takes that and receives that blessing, and he's called Gopeshwara Mahadeva. Gopishwara, the Ishwara amongst the gopis, Mahadeva. So it's Lord Shiva in a female form as a gopi. And there are temples in Vrindavan that you can go. The idea is that when one visits Vrindavan, we may enter with our body, but we want to enter fully. We want to enter with our mind and our heart entirely. And in order to receive the blessing to enter, one has to go to the guard, to Gopishwar Mahadev. So often the first temple that you go to when you go to Vrindavan is you go to the temple of Gopishwar Mahadev and you pray to Lord Shiva to please allow you to enter into Vrindavan so that you can enter into the world of devotional service to Krishna. So there are different categories of beings. The fact that they call Shiva Mahadeva means that he's superior. He's the great one amongst all the devas. But Krishna is called Deva Deva. He's the god of all the gods. Right there. And he's worshipped with love by Lord Shiva. So much could be said. We could go on and on about these. But it's a beautiful... The love that the Vaishnavas have for Lord Shiva is a very rich, deep idea. And it's said that understanding the truth of Lord Shiva, who exactly he is, in just how special he is one of the most subtle and difficult concepts to fully grasp. Yes.
Hey, Toss. Hi. I've just been turning around ideas about Lord Shiva, and you mentioned about divine love being a sort of very important thing to focus on. I'm thinking more about what we should do on this earth. And so my question is, I'm coming from a sort of Asian background, trying to understand my spirituality. I know the stories so well, but I've never really understood them in childhood. I'm trying to understand them more. The Shiv, I find him so intriguing because there's almost a hierarchy within him. There's the Shakti idea where he's focusing on this sort of incredible consciousness and logic. And then the other side, which is almost he loses himself, or, the male-female energy, where I think of it as Shakti, where it's just sort of in the moment. And I think of that as divine love. So I might be over-conceptualizing it internally, but my question is does one supersede another on this earth? An example would be, if you know logically that someone is repeatedly not good for you or harming you, or a relationship is not functional, then does your love for them, what do you do? Do you just love them and love yourself and just be loving? How do you take notice of the sort of consciousness side of you, the logic? How do you make those decisions? And does love trump logic and consciousness, or do they act? I don't know. What's your answer to that?
One thing that I try to be careful of is not to play the role of a relationship coach. Okay? That's really not my role or expertise. But I will try to speak to what you brought up. Someone asked the other night, how do we know what's the difference between like the love of this world which is a love that is in some way, well, we could use different words, tainted, warped by material consciousness. What's the difference between the love of this world and divine love? Okay. I thought that was a good question. And in one sense, there's many ways to answer it, but I think maybe if we got down to the most fundamental way to answer that, I might answer it like this. Are you ready? Yes? Okay. This is a background to your question. This is a foundation. Well, once we establish this foundation, then we can take it to your question, see how it plays out. So I would say, what is the essential difference between the love of this world and divine love? And I would use a word that is commonly used in association with love nowadays, and that is the word unconditional. You've heard the term unconditional love, right? Love that's conditional. The conditions are usually on the material platform. I mean, they're always on the material platform. I love this person, but now I don't love them anymore because the circumstances changed. The conditions changed. Or I love this person, but I don't love that person. I love the person that's in my family. I don't love the person that's not in my family. I love this cute little puppy dog. I don't love this disgusting cockroach. You understand? There's conditions that are based on external conditions. It's conditional love. Sometimes when somebody falls in love, people will ask them, what is it about this person that made you fall in love with them? And commonly the answer is, they're different than anyone that I've ever met in my life. Let's say something like this. The way they do this and the way they do that, or so on. So those are conditions, right? Whereas unconditional love means I love this person whether they behave like this or they behave like that. I love this person whether they're born in my family or not. I love these people whether they're the people of my nation or people of another nation. I love this person even if they do horrible things. Well, on what basis? On what basis do you love them? Because I recognize with knowledge, right? With knowledge, this jnana, this atma jnana, knowing what is the nature of the self. I know that even that person that's doing horrible things, that underneath there's a pure soul, a pure spark of God's energy underneath. And that pure spark, which does nothing but love, their love is coming out and it's being warped as it comes out through a warped mind. You understand? There's nothing in there but that is the nature of the self, but it's coming out through a warped mind. Really, whatever we see in this world is either an expression of love or an expression of the need for love, the crying out for love. That crying out for love can be expressed in a lot of horrible ways when it comes to a warped mind. So a lot of the sickest and craziest and cruelest stuff, if we really got down to the very heart of it, we'd find that there's an insecure, weak person that's been given some external power and they're engaging it in a crazy way. They're saying, look, love me. Love, I'm bombing this country, now love me. That's exactly what's happening. Right? So it's understandable to someone say, I can't stand that person. But someone with deeper spiritual insight says, that person underneath is suffering worse than practically all of us. I love that person. I don't love their warped mind, but the person underneath I love. That's unconditional love, right? And when you have that kind of love, you don't love what's so different about someone. You love what's the same in everyone. That everyone, it's just kind of like, if you love the sun, you love the sunlight and every ray of it. You love the light, you love the warmth of it. Every soul is that energy of God. Every soul underneath the warped mind and the different bodies that have different races and different genders and different nationalities and different species. But underneath all of these differences is something that's the same. That's what I love. I love the soul, right? That's real love. The other love is conditional and it comes and goes. The real love is like the self. It's eternal. It's unconditional. Good foundation? Okay, so from that foundation, we can go into look into how that applies to all different kind of circumstances. You mentioned a circumstance where, whether it's a marriage or some kind of, not even just marriage, in any kind of close relationship, there can be room for some kind of oppression or some kind of even abuse. And I believe your question was, if we have divine love, how does that apply in that situation? Now, again, I'm not a relationship counselor, and I'm also not like a, I don't know, I guess I don't like to try to speak too much into fields where I don't really have training or knowledge. But I'll say this, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be abused, right? We shouldn't allow ourselves to be abused. We can love that person and still want them to be in prison because it's to protect others, and maybe they even need it too. We can love every single person and still say I need to keep a little distance from them. We can have a loving attitude towards them, but not necessarily have to be close to them if they're oppressing us in some harmful way. So that's the kind of thing that one has to. I can't just sit here and give a formula for how to deal with any particular situation. Hopefully, all of us in our lives have some close friends and some wise mentors in our life that we can speak to about these things and get broader and deeper perspectives on. And sometimes we have to do something. Sometimes we need to step back. Sometimes we need to step away. It's possible, you know. But this real love, again, is this kind of like, this is one last key I want to share to this question. And where the nature of the different kind of conflicts or oppression may stem, ignorance of this idea. Are you ready? Everybody else ready? With me? Love talk here. We're talking about love. I totally forgot what I was going to say. I always had it all set up. Well, oh yes. Okay, got it. Got it back. If we can think of love, generally we think of love as, I love this person so much because they make me happy. And so therefore, my happiness is dependent on my relationship with them. We really think that's what love is. This person makes me so happy. And so then we get married, let's say. And we get married with the idea that this person is going to be the source of my happiness. One person is looking and saying, he's so handsome, he can provide for me, he this, that, and the other. He will make me happy. I love you. And the other person is saying, she's so beautiful, she's this, she's that, you know, she will make me happy, right? And now you've gone into this relationship with this idea that that's the source of my happiness, that's the source of my happiness. When there's a weakness in that, when that breaks in some way, then we feel like you no longer make me happy. Let's end this. That wasn't love, right? Love is, I don't need you to make me happy and you don't need me to make you happy. Happiness is our nature that's within. This is the nature of the self. Satchit Ananda. We're all blissful within. So the value and the beauty in our relationship is that together, we're you could say together, we're helping each other realize ourself. Or together, we're holding hands and we're walking towards God together. Now you have a partner and a partnership and a love based on reality rather than based on illusion. And that's the kind of relationships that are really healthy. That's a spiritual love right there as well. So we can say spiritual love is loving the soul in everyone, and spiritual love is helping each other uncover that happiness that is within, not without. Is that okay? All right, thank you. This sensitive, tender, vulnerable question you asked. I appreciate that. Any other questions? Sir? Yes? Yes.
Just about some what I've heard about weakness of heart or something like that. If you can speak few words about that. Yeah.
You can hear Raghunath's got that kirtan going in there. That's my friend in there. He's good. Weakness of heart, I suppose people may use the term in different ways, but the way that I've heard it used in spiritual contexts is that we may know what is the right thing to do. But when it comes to doing it, we may be too weak to do it. Understand? I know that it would be the right thing for me to do to let go of this very bad habit. But somehow I can continue to do it. I know that it would be the best thing for me to do to take up an important practice. But I always procrastinate and I never get around to doing it. What do? I scroll on this thing, right? That's weakness of heart, right? The challenge is there. We know what to do, but we don't do it. So it's not at all uncommon. As a matter of fact, it's quite common that, like, say we take up the path of Bhakti Yoga, that in the beginning there may be a weakness of heart there. And that's going to be something that we need to overcome. Like, in other words, we may say, whoa, these are really nice people. They're onto something. We may say, I've spent more time with these people and I'm seeing just how special their practice is and how it seems to be transforming them in wonderful ways. We may say, I've heard their philosophy about life and now everything is starting to make sense. The reason why they're so special is because they have this beautiful philosophy about life and they're living according to it and they're evolving as human beings. I can see it all. I get it. It's clear to me. I also want to take up this practice and I want to be guided in it so that I can transform as they're transforming. And then you're given the guidance. This is what you need to do. This is how you practice it. And you'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that today. Right? So that's weakness of heart. Right? So one has to find a way to transcend that weakness of heart. Yeah.
Just I want to know that I've read in some one of the books of Srila Prabhupada or some other article I've read that what is this falling short of God's love?
Falling short of God's love. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that phrase. But I would suppose it could be understood in this way. That God's love is there and is there for everyone. Okay? But do we receive it or not? Like in India, it's not so important. But in the West, people like to get a nice suntan in the summer. Right? They think it looks very, they go out and they lie in the sun. Right? Okay. In India, we don't see this happening so much. But in the Western countries, in the summertime, everyone wants to get a nice tan complexion, right? So the sun is there, and it's shining down. Its power is there. Its transformative power is there. And we may want the sunshine, but if we want to get it, we actually have to go out into the sun. We can't stay indoors all the time. It's there. Everyone can take it. If someone has a tan and someone doesn't, it's not the fault of the sun that they don't have the tan. It's that they haven't gone out of the house and actually spent time in the sun. So in a similar way, God's grace, God's love is there for every living being. It's like the sunshine is coming down on everyone. But the question is, do we accept it? Or do we fall short of it? Right? And so the path to bhakti, in one sense, it's not so much about accomplishing something. It's about receiving something. Some of the other yoga paths, it's like perform incredible austerity, develop greater and greater powers of concentration, and something will happen. You've accomplished something. In bhakti, it's more like you've opened up and received something, right? You open up and receive. So falling short of God's love perhaps could be seen like that. That I didn't receive what's there. I got distracted by other things, or maybe I got a little fearful. There was a little lack of trust, and I tried to maintain a feeling of independence from God, and I fell short of receiving His love. Maybe it could be spoken of that way. Thank you. Maravaji, Haribo. Any other questions tonight? We've had some wonderful questions, and we're always eager for another. Everybody's thinking. They might be thinking, is my question worthy? Your question is worthy. We would like to hear your question. Yes, question?
We've been raised with the idea that matter is what's basically real, and everything else is due to a combination of these basic material particles, and even that awareness is an epiphenomena, an emergent property. This has kind of informed most of academia and whatnot, but now there's a shift in a lot of thinking that in those same like atheistic philosophy people, physicists, where you see matter as space-time is actually emergent from a non-temporal base. Positive geometry is one expression. And you see this over and over again, like in physics, at extreme cold or extreme hot, matter acts as one thing, not a diverse thing, sort of a chincha beta beta, right? Like we have entangled particles, one is here and one is across the universe. If the spin is up on this one and I change it, the other one instantaneously changes to the opposite spin, faster than the speed of light. So the question that emerges is space-time like a giant cosmic closet full of things that are persistent stuff? And this is sort of the conditional, common sense notion of what reality is, that, you know, this thing is, it's, so then with your example of virtual reality, in a virtual reality, the only thing that's rendered in the model is what you're looking at. So it's a just-in-time rendering, right? It's done just for the viewer. And so there's like the collapsing of the waveform, this idea bomb that when we change our attention, then the waveform, which is just a probabilistic state, collapses into a thingishness, right? So the question is, the world we experience, is it just rendered for the purpose of relation, like in the spiritual world? Is it only presented to our awareness for the sake of this exchange and experience? Or is it that we're experiencing a world that's a 3D plus time thing that persists even when there's no attention paid to it? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure. but that was a whole lot right there. But let me see if I can reflect your question back to you. You began with saying that there's an idea that's catching on in popularity, that matter actually develops out of spirit, if I understood it right, rather than everything is matter.
They wouldn't call it spirit.
Okay.
They would say it's moving toward information rather than it from bit, right? So that bit meaning it's informational. In an atheistic way, you would just say it's mathematical.
We would have to talk longer for me to understand what you mean by informational or mathematical. I'm not sure how those terms apply.
But the question is, does matter exist? Is the universe like a giant closet of space-time and full of stuff that persists when no one's paying attention to it? Or is Balaram rendering it in real time for the sole purpose of experience?
So I'll do my best with this. And maybe it'll apply to your question or not, I'm not sure. But I'll just throw a couple things out, some interesting things. One is that it's said that that matter is eternal, but that it's always transforming, right? That the external energy is a principle that always exists. It's not like it just appears for some time, and then if nobody's paying attention to it, it disappears. It's, well, the material energy in general, right? If we're talking about the different forms in it, the different forms are always changing. but the energy itself is eternal. Now, another thing that's just really, Srila Prabhupada said something. I don't know if he's following the previous commentators, or if he's just sharing his own insight when he says this, but he shares it in a commentary to, I think it's the second verse of the 15th chapter, where he's talking about the reflection of the banyan tree, and he's saying that this world is a sense of reflection. And he said the analogy is that there's a spiritual realm. I think we may have lost all the listeners because this question was so let me just try to bring it back to something that's
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. But in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shares an analogy to help us understand the relationship between the spiritual realm and the material realm. And he says that essentially this world is like a reflection. It's like a tree. The spiritual realm is like a tree, and the material realm is like a reflection of that tree, which means it looks just like it, but it's backwards. And then he says the reflection of the spiritual world onto the material world, what that reflection rests on, in the analogy, it rests on the surface of the water, right? The reflection rests on the surface of the water. In what's being analogized, he's saying, what does the reflection of the material world rest on? He said it rests on desire. It rests on desire. Right? So the desire of the living entity, if there's no material desire, then there would be no material world. There would be nothing for the reflection to rest on. So it's the desire to, in a sense, experience a false identity separate from our origin that the illusion of the material world rests on. And there's always a need for that, because there's always a desire for that. So I don't know if that applies in some way to your question. Just in some way.
I'd love to talk with you sometime.
Okay. I don't know. I think I would have to read a lot of the articles you're reading to be able to even understand how you're applying the terms and everything. But it's all interesting stuff. Thank you. Any other questions? Maybe less technical than that one. Yes.
Harbo. I understand that we have some karma in life that we have to fulfill. And I've heard people say things like, oh, however much money you're meant to have, you'll have or lose. So it feels like a lot of things are preordained. So I was wondering about prayer, and when we pray for something, or maybe it doesn't have to be something material, it could be spiritual, it could be anything. What is is there a purpose for that prayer if we already have something or not have something? Is there a time to give up on that prayer? Do we still pray? Just if that's enough of the question to understand, then okay.
There's a lot of the Vedic literature, especially the four Vedas, they deal with how to get your desires in this world fulfilled. And that's done by cultivating good karma. That is not the most refined spiritual teachings. There's deeper spiritual teachings than that. That's kind of like a beginner's step in evolution. When you get to the very mature teachings, they teach, there's one verse, akama, whether you have no desires, akama, sarvakama, va, or whether you're full of desires, all desires, akama, sarvakama, va, mokshakama, or maybe you desire to become free of the bondage of this world. So either you have no material desire, you have a lot of material desire, or you have a desire to become free of the material realm. Akama, sarvakama, va, mokshakama, udaridi, tivrena bhakti yogena, yajeta purushamparam. In either case, you will benefit if you perform bhakti yoga. If you try to connect to the being that's providing all of this behind it, and if you do it with an expression of devotion. Um, Still, there's room for evolution here, because essentially what these spiritual texts are trying to get us to the stage of is that we let go of all material desire. I say that and you look like you're a little hesitant. Let me ask you, when I say to let go of all material desire, in your mind, do you think that's impossible? I could never do that. A little bit? It seems like a very tall order. What I want to share with you is that there are different ways people approach spiritual life. One way is to sit alone, secluded, analyze all your desires, see how they fall short of true happiness, and break them. It's not an easy thing to do. We could call that Jnana Yoga. But there's another way where you don't have to walk away from the world, but that you can just start to revolve around the divine. The music that you listen to, still listen to music, but listen to music that reminds you of God. Still eat nice food, but cook it and prepare it as an offering to God, right? Still have friends, but have friends that are connected to God. Still sing and dance, but sing and dance in relation to God. So all the desires that you have, it's not that you have to end them, but they just need to be a bit more realigned, like that, right? Now, as far as karma is concerned, what I'm receiving in this world and what I might receive in the future, that's, to the elevated spiritualist, that's a game that they're not interested in playing anymore. It's said that the advanced spiritualists, they kind of recognize, I've done things in the past. I'm due a certain amount of pleasure. I'm due a certain amount of pain. I'm not going to try to gain more external pleasure or avoid external pain. I know that just as I don't actively pursue pain in life, it comes. In a similar way, I don't have to actively pursue material happiness. That will come as well. Let me just accept what's coming my way with tolerance. And let me devote my body, my words, and my mind to the service of the divine, right? To the service of God. It's a different strategy, right? And with that strategy, I can be, if I can just learn to tolerate, not to pursue a programming in my mind that's telling me happiness lies here and here and there. If it comes, great. If it doesn't come, that's okay. It makes no difference. If I'm experiencing something solid on the spiritual level, I'll be able to tolerate anything externally and still feel wonderful inside. That's where the wiser person is focused. One moment. Is it worthwhile to pray?
So is it really worthwhile to pray for something? Whether it's material, spiritual, it could be someone's health, could be anything.
The more evolved spiritualist is not interested in praying for the things of this world. Imagine, are you a mother? Okay, imagine you were a mother. Let's say you had a few kids. And whenever they came to you, they were asking for something. Mom, I need money. Right? Mom, I want new clothes. Mom, I want this. Mom, I want that. Mom. It's not the deepest relationship. Right? They're probably not appreciating your love. And they're just seeing you essentially as like Amazon.com. Right? It's not a very elevated, they haven't evolved so much, the children, in understanding the feelings that you have for them. The love that you feel in your heart for them, they're not so in touch with it. They're not so refined. They're not so evolved. But they may come to that point in maybe after they have their own children. They begin to see the world in a different way. They feel the love that you felt for them in their own heart for their own children. They begin to appreciate all that you gave and shared and all the love that you have for them. And now when they call you on the phone, they're not saying, Mom, I want this. They say, Mom, thank you for all the care that you gave me. Mom, what can I do for you? Mom, I love you. Right? Now they've actually understood reality. And more importantly, they've understood your love. So is it worth it that they call you and ask it for something? They've evolved beyond that. They're on a higher level. Now, is it better that your child asks you for something or go and try to seek these things out in some other crazy ways? Better that they go to you, right? Because you really care, and because by coming to you, there's the opportunity that they may start to appreciate you more. You keep that connection alive, even if it's on a low level. Therefore, akama sarva kamova, moksha kama. Whether you want lots of stuff or don't want anything or want moksha, do it with bhakti approach, trying through expressions of bhakti. You're better off that way. So, is it worth it? You can do that. But if we need to get that inspiration that there's something more to life than that. We're fortunate when we look at that and we say, what was I doing? Why was I approaching? There's a story. Interesting story. And it's told in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it was about a little boy, but he was a prince. And his name was Dhruva. Do you know the story of Dhruva? Right? He was the son of the king. And one day he's playing on the lap of his father. But his father had 2 wives. And he was the son of the older, less favored wife. And as he's playing on the lap of his father, his stepmother, the younger, more favored wife, she says, you cannot play on the lap of my husband. That's for my son. If you ever want to play on his lap, you're going to need to die and take birth from me. What a thing to say to a kid. My God, the arrogance, the insensitivity. And it was insensitive, and little Dhruva, that burned him up. He was very upset about this. And he went to his mother, and his mother said, I wish I could tell you something different, but the fact is that he loves my co-wife more than he loves me. And what she said is true. You know, you can see he's controlled by her, and I can't help you with that. But what I can help you with is to say, 1, don't retaliate. Don't hate that person, because that will just bring you suffering in the future. But what you can do is go to God. You know, and I believe that you can find God in the forest of Vrindavan. So go to Vrindavan. And he's real young, but really determined. And his determined was he wanted something of this world. He wanted a kingdom greater than that of his father. That was his goal in life. That was his focus. That was his desire. That was his motive. And as he's going to the forest, he runs into a great sage, Narada. Narada can see this little boy is really worked up. Why? He said, you're just a boy. You're so upset. Why don't you just let it go? And little Narada looks at him and says, I can't let it go. Right? It's in me and it's burning, and that's just the way it is. So Narada says, okay, well, if you want something great, let me help you, show you how to approach God. So now he's acting as guru. Let me help you understand your sadhana. What will be your path? How you practice. And he tells him what mantra to chant. He tells him what form to create and worship. He tells him how to meditate, how to stand, how to breathe, all these things, but especially where to take his meditation. And he says, take your meditation to Vishnu, right? And so with this understanding, little Dhruva goes into the forest of Vrindavan. I think he's standing on one leg. He's doing this intense breathing, and it's all working, right? He goes in an incredibly deep, powerful state of trance. And in that trance, he sees Lord Vishnu. What a vision. So beautiful, so stunning. When he sees that form becomes so captivating that all that he was thinking about before, he just kind of forgot it all. And he's absorbed in that vision of Vishnu. It's so wonderful. It's hard to describe how healing and purifying and satisfying that vision is. He's forgotten he was on the lap of his father, the evil stepmother. It's the last thing he's thinking about, what he's feeling. And then suddenly the vision of trance ends. What happened? It's gone. And then he opens his eyes and Lord Vishnu is standing in front of him. And he's overwhelmed with feelings of love. His heart is melting in love for Lord Vishnu. And he wants to begin to express devotion. He's just a little boy. But he's trying to speak, but he's feeling such intense, his spiritual emotions are so powerful he can't even speak. And then Lord Vishnu, he has 4 arms. In one he has a lotus flower. In one he has a discus. In one he has a club. And in one he has a conch shell. And with the hand that has the conch shell, he reaches down and he touches Dhruva's head with the conch shell. And when he touches his head, suddenly Dhruva can speak. And then Dhruva begins to pray. And those prayers are recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's so much wisdom about life and about devotion and about bhakti and about reality. And with tears in his eyes, tears of divine love in his eyes, he prays, "You are like the greatest jewel. And I was doing all of this austerity and hard work just for broken pieces of glass. I wanted broken glass. I was doing all these rituals I was doing, the mantra that I was chanting, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That's a prayer of love to Lord Vishnu. The seva, the puja that I was doing to this form of Lord Vishnu, represents an act of love. I was doing that to get something of this world. I was chanting the mantra to get something of this world. What was I thinking about?" He felt embarrassed. He felt regret. Someone as beautiful and wonderful and kind and loving as you. I was worshiping you for what? When you're offering me your love and I'm turning away from it and wanting something insignificant, what is the matter with me? The reason these kind of stories are shared in these ancient texts is we got to look at ourselves. What are we after in this life? Is it significant or insignificant? And how significant can it be in relation to God's love? Let's get our bearing straight here, right? Let's get our bearing straight. So we can worship the devas and try to get the things of this stuff. We can pray to God, please give me the things of this world. It's better than not recognizing God at all. It's a step up. But we're meant for much more than that. We're meant for much. And if we read the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, these 2 books really help us understand what's what. And they can begin to stir a desire in us to evolve, to come to a higher stage, to come to pure love. Is that okay? Okay, thank you very much. It's a good question. We have time for another question or 2, perhaps. Yes, sir.
How can we beat the insecurity which is within us from the past traumas and family relations?
That's a very good question, very relevant question. I think in the world that we live in today, we live with challenges that weren't there before. And I think the biggest part of it is social media. It's had psychiatrists and psychologists, they study this and they say we're in a different era now because we're all looking at these machines and comparing ourselves with what's being portrayed through them constantly. And it really has an effect on the mind, and it's making many people feel a very deep sense of unworthiness, a very deep sense of insecurity. So it's something that we're struggling with. And I think certain answers are coming about that may not be the most helpful. Like sometimes it's like someone, due to some external consideration, let's say it's their weight or how they look, we're told, you're beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not. You're just as beautiful as anyone else in the world, and don't forget it. But the fact is that we have a hard time convincing ourselves of that, and the world isn't reciprocating with that either. What I think would be better kind of knowledge is that we're all temporarily passing through bodies that come and go. We are not, this is called Atmagyan, and this goes right to your question. How do we overcome it? Atmagyana, knowledge of the self. I'm not this body. All those things that I'm insecure about are not me, right? That has nothing to do with me. All these things that I'm insecure about are just the package that I'm in for a moment. I pass through it, and then I pass out of it. And everybody else is doing the same thing. My worth isn't tied to this body, right? My worth is that I have an eternal connection to God. And when I know that and when I feel that, the things of this world do not disturb me. This is empowerment, right? Now I'm empowered not by some false conception and telling myself something that I don't even believe. Now I'm believing truth. And that truth takes me so far above these petty concerns that I'm free. So really this Atmagyana is powerful. And I've seen people in all kind of conditions that seem materially very unfortunate, that don't struggle with insecurity, that feel their own self-worth and live a blissful life. Atmagyana, read Bhagavad Gita, contemplate it, and you'll find that knowledge of the self. Set you free. The truth will set you free. You've heard that before? Is that a biblical statement? Or is it Martin Luther King? Or was it Martin Luther King quoting a biblical statement? You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I think it's from the Bible. Right? That's what sets us free. Not some little trick of the mind or some positive affirmation that we talk to in the mirror. I'm not entirely putting those things down. Those can be helpful. But that's what we should be affirming. The positive affirmation be, I'm not this body. I'm eternal spark of the energy of Krishna. Tell yourself that positive affirmation, a truthful positive affirmation, and it'll be the most effective. All right? Thank you. That's a good question. 8:15. We got a little bit more time. Pranapriya, do you have any questions? You sure? Okay. It's from the Bible. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set ye free. Yes? Yes.
How can be love in a world that is invite us to be evil?
Well, the invitation to be evil is actually the unnatural side, right? The love is the natural side. The love is our nature. If we were to boil away everything, boil away the body, boil away the mind until just the self was left, there's no evil in there, right? There's love in there, right? That's what we really are. So any call to being evil is unnatural. It's foreign to the self. Now we may be walking through an environment that's calling us to do that. We need to really guard against it. We were talking about positive affirmations a moment ago. In one sense, a positive affirmation is a type of reflection. Taking a thought, being in a certain circumstance, bringing the thought back to mind, playing it in our mind again, contemplating it. This is called reflection. Right? There's Shravana, which means hearing. Then there's Manana, which means reflection. Whenever we're called for evil, we have to reflect. In that moment. And it's so easy to go there. It's so easy to be caught up in the people of this religion are wrong, and I hate them. The people from this country are bad. Look at the things they do. I hate them. You know, the people of this gender, I can't stand them. The people, you know, there's so much of this going on. And again, we scroll around and it's just sending us one message. Some people are too confused. Who am I supposed to hate? Right? It could get hard. It could get hard now to figure out who am I supposed to hate. Am I supposed to hate this side or this side? Tell me who to hate so I can be on the right side. It's getting almost like ridiculous. How about I don't hate anybody? Right? How about I realize that there's we've done enough evil on both sides. How about we realize that I've probably been on both sides of this feud in different lifetimes. Sometimes I'm convinced that the people with the greatest hate for another, let's say it's another nation or another race, that they're so fixated in that hatred that they take birth in that nation or in that race in their next birth. And the people of the extremes on both sides are just like flipping back and forth. There was this television show back in the 60s called Star Trek. You ever see Star Trek? I was not a Trekkie. I don't really know so much about it, but I know that there's this one episode where there was these two, they went to some other planet or something like that, and on that planet there were two tribes that were caught up in a bitter war and rivalry that just went on for generations and generations and generations. They absolutely hated the other people. They had nothing good to say. They were evil. Everything they did was wrong. They were ugly, right? And to them, it's the world that they live in, and they're all totally convinced in their hatred. But then the Star Trek people landed on that planet. They're saying, "You hate each other, but you look just alike." What do you mean? We look exactly the opposite. One of them was like black on this side and white on that side, and the other tribe was white on this side and black on that side. Otherwise, they're exactly the same, right? But they had this intense hatred for each other. The world is kind of calling us to hate each other. And we can't be so foolish to fall into it. We can't embrace the ignorance that we're so different. We have to look at the truth that we're so much the same, right? That underneath, that the external things are superficial. It's what's underneath that's important. And we can say that in a sentimental way, but when you say that as a Vedantin, you say that with piles of knowledge, piles of exercises to help you really understand that, to get right down to the deepest truth of that, right? And again, then when you see that underneath, then you can love everyone, right? Resist that message to tell you to hate anyone, even the most evil person. You don't have to commiserate with them. You can even wish that they receive some kind, that justice is served and they have to answer for what they're doing. But never hate, right? Once there's hate, we've adopted the same mentality that's causing the problem. I mentioned this the other night. Nelson Mandela was in prison for, I think, 27 years, just for being on the side of truth and compassion. And when he was finally released, he had to tell himself and really reflect on this idea: I cannot allow myself to hate my captors. Because if I do, then I'm still in prison, right? I'm in the prison of hate that they created, right? That's not who I'm supposed to be. Then I'm still been affected by them. I should be beyond the effect of their hatred. If I hate them, then I'm still affected by their hatred. And I've adopted the same kind of mentality that they have. Right? Forgiveness. Right? Forgiveness is big key. Right? There's one passage in the Mahabharata. Have you read Mahabharata before? Do you recall the time when the Pandavas were in the forest, 5 brothers? They were thirsty. And the youngest went to look for water. He didn't come back. And then the next one went to look for water. He didn't come back. And each one goes like that until Yudhishthira, the eldest, is the only one left. He goes to search for water. Do you remember this? He finds a body of water, and his 5 brothers are lying there dead. His 4 brothers. He can't understand what's going on. He's shocked. Still, he's very thirsty. He goes down to drink some of the water, and he hears a voice. This is the same voice that spoke to all the previous brothers. But the voice said to each of them was, anyone who dares drink that water without my permission will die immediately. But because they're warriors, they don't back down. So each one of them drank the water, each one of them died. Until Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was the most Brahminical. He was a powerful warrior. but he also had very much the the mind, the attitude of a brahmana, like a wise man. So when he heard that voice, he said, "Okay, what can I do for you?" He says, "I have questions. I have questions for you." Oh no, I'm messing it up. This is another Leela. There are some great answers in that one. It was another time. I'm sorry. I was building that up. I had that going, right? No, I mean, I'll share something from that because I put so much work into it now. He's asked all these questions, subtle, cryptic questions, questions that you wouldn't know how to answer. He answered them all perfectly. And one of the questions was, what is the most amazing thing? How are you supposed to answer that question? Right? What is the most amazing thing? Do you know what he said? He said the most amazing thing is we're all living in the world of death. At every moment, we're seeing every living being walk into death. You can't turn around without seeing things die. Everything dies. No doubt about it. And yet still we move around as if we're not going to die. That's the most amazing thing. Like he went down through a whole, and everything he answered perfectly. And the being that was speaking this voice said, "I'm very satisfied with all your answers. I'm so satisfied that any one of your brothers you can bring back to life." Okay? Now, Yudhishthira had 4 brothers. 2 of them were, they all had the same father, but 2 of them were from his mother, and 2 of them were from another mother. Brother from another mother. And he said, which brother? Now, his 2 brothers from his own mother were the most powerful warriors, Arjuna and Bhima. And he's got battles to face, and one of them, you would think he would ask for one of them. The other 2 brothers, they were powerful warriors, but not of the same. The brothers from the other mother were not as powerful. And yet he asked for one of them to be given the life back. They weren't from his own mother, and they weren't as powerful. Doesn't seem to make sense. So the voice asks, why did you ask for that brother and not for your own brothers from your own mother? And he said that, well, I am the son of Kunti, and so one son of Kunti is surviving. They are the sons of Madri, my mother's co-wife. One of her sons should also live. What a generous, selfless. And so then the voice says, because of your answer, all of them can come back to life. Right? So this is Yudhishthira. Right? So much to learn from the example of Yudhishthira, including the time that he was talking to his wife, Draupadi. And she sometimes saw, I mentioned that the others were like fierce, ferocious warriors. He was powerful. The name Yudhishthira means, Yuddha means battle, and Sthira means steady. It means he was steady in battle. You couldn't exhaust him. You couldn't take him down. He was a powerful warrior. But still, he was like a brahmana. He was into wisdom. He was into tolerance. He was into forgiveness. And sometimes his own family members were like, you're too forgiving. Be more like a warrior. You should be angry. You know? And his own wife is telling him this. It's hard. It's hard. She's saying, she's expecting him to be more angry. And he's saying, you know, my dear wife, I love you, but I must tell you how important forgiveness is. So here's this, you can he's probably got like huge arms and just strong man. And he's giving this talk on forgiveness. And he's saying to her how important forgiveness is, how powerful forgiveness is. And he says that forgiveness, he says the entire world is held together by forgiveness. Without forgiveness, it all shatters and falls apart. Right? He says forgiveness is so powerful, it's like a crude aesthetic merit. Like people might go up into the mountains and perform severe austerities and get power. He said you get power like that from forgiveness. He goes on a long list of just how important forgiveness is. And then he says this. He says forgiveness is a quiet mind. He says forgiveness is this, forgiveness is that. Forgiveness is a quiet mind. In other words, by learning to forgive, it's not necessary that we're letting the other person off the hook. by forgiving, we're taking all the weight that's on our shoulders, all the weight that's on our mind, all the weight that makes it impossible for us to really become deeply absorbed in spirituality. And we're letting it go so that the mind becomes open and capable of becoming deeply absorbed in mantra, deeply absorbed in seva, deeply absorbed in puja, deeply absorbed in all our spiritual activities. If we can't learn to forgive, we don't stand a chance. Our mind's going to be so caught up in loops of anger, resentment, hatred, like that. The yogi learns how to forgive and let it all go. Doesn't mean that they're not interested in justice. Yudhishthira still went out onto the battlefields, but he didn't have any hate in his heart. No hate allowed for the yogi. All right. Shall we end on that for tonight? No hate. Everybody agree? Anybody into hate? Tell me right now. When Raghunath and I were kids, we used to listen to all these crazy punk rock bands. One of them was called Reagan Youth. And they had a song called I Hate Hate. So if we're going to hate anything, it's only hate that we can hate. Okay? Otherwise, nothing but love. Thank you all so very much. If you would like to, thank you. If you would like to hear previous Q&As or classes that I'm giving here, please speak to Gabriella. She will connect you with where they're all being posted. Wonderful prasadam, wonderful kirtan. Classes tomorrow morning at 8. There is class tomorrow. At 8 a.m., Yogi Charu teaching asana and meditation. There's nothing like it. It's become the talk of Rishikesh, actually. So many people coming. I teach a class after that on Bhakti and Vedanta philosophy. So he's from 8 till 9, I'm from 9 till 10. And there's a full day. Tomorrow's a big holiday. Gaura Purnima, the birthday of the great, most wonderful and merciful avatar, Sri Chaitanya, who's the one that brought Kirtan really to this world. It'll be the full moon tomorrow, the Gaura Purnima, the golden Purnima, the golden full moon. So there'll be a lot happening all day. And for tonight, wonderful prasad, wonderful kirtan. Please stick around. Thank you all so much. Hari Om Tat Sat.